I'm Tenitra Batiste, and is this the spin the block the Falcons needed?
I'm Aaron Freeman, and I can't wait for another offseason of talking about Kaleb McGary protecting someone's blind side.
I'm Miles Garrett, and our long national nightmare with uniforms is over. New uniforms coming for the Falcons.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and we up here being attracted to some lefties.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis, and the next ATL's Miles Garrett. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So should number one become QB2 for Atlanta? We'll take that under further review. And the Falcons coaching staff is complete. We'll talk about who needs to level up and new unis. Who this? We'll download on that. And we are going to talk free agency. But before we do that, I feel like, Jarvis Davis, you were shooting shots, firing shots already. Like, what's up with that? I heard some southpaw violence going on when you're talking about lefties.
No. I live in a house full of them, right? Because my oldest daughter, she was supposed to be left-handed, but they made her start writing with her right hand. My youngest daughter's a lefty. My wife is a lefty. And, I'm ambidextrous, what I'm saying? I used to slap folks upside the head with my left hand, my right hand when I played defensive line. So, Aaron, why you laughing at me, dog? Don't do me like that, bro.
Okay. Miles, we just don't know how to act in front of company. We're so sorry.
We're starting this way. This is usually a third segment thing, but we're going
we're going in early.
It's Monday, y'all. Come on now.
It's Monday. Lefties galore. Let's do it.
Exactly. Yes. When the southpaw hears what sounds like southpaw hatred, I gotta say something because
should have worn my Rocky shirt today.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we got to stick together, man. We got to stick together. So, anywho, guys, legal tampering in the NFL has absolutely begun. And we're going to talk about where to go with some of those potential moves that the Falcons might make. But according to multiple reports, they've already made at least a minor move. And we talked about this a couple days ago on the Thursday Squad Show that we didn't expect necessarily that the Falcons' first move would be a major one, if you will, or a splashy one, but maybe just quote unquote a solid one. And you can kind of look at this that way. According to multiple reports, Olamide Zaccheaus is signing, or can you say re-signing with the Falcons after being signed about 7 years ago after as an undrafted free agent. So for you, Jarvis, what do you think about this as a first move in free agency for the Falcons?
It makes all the sense in the world when you're talking about Ian Cunningham having to find depth when everybody else is looking to spend a bag because they don't have a bag to spend. So I think this makes a lot of sense when it comes to having a guy that can be a depth piece. I'm not saying he's going to be a wide receiver 2. Shoot, he might not even be a wide receiver 3. But when you comes to filling out the back end of your wide receiver room and being a guy that can be productive for you, a guy you can count on when you're throwing the football. I was watching the highlight before we got started when Matt Ryan threw that deep ball to Olamide Zaccheaus. He caught that bad boy and took it to the crib. So I think, and then you look at what he did with the Commanders, you look at what he did with the Bears. He wasn't like super productive, but he was a guy that you can count on when you threw him the football. And that's what the Falcons need right now.
Yeah. And for you, Miles, when you think about OZ coming back potentially in the Falcons uniform, according to multiple sources, including his agent or an agent from the agency that he signed with, what do you think about that as a move, especially knowing, Miles, what the wide receiver room for the Falcons currently looks like?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jarvis. And from a pure depth standpoint, this move is absolutely necessary, right? Because looking at it right now, Darnell Mooney is expected to be released. You only really have 2 guys contracted right now, that being Drake London and Casey Washington. So you need bodies to come in this room right now. It doesn't have to be great moves. We know that this team could be a little bit hamstrung with the salary cap, and you obviously don't have a lot of draft picks, just 5, your first one being in the second round. You don't want to necessarily make that second round pick a wide receiver? They could, but they do have a lot of needs at this point. So getting a guy with familiar territory with Ian Cunningham, that experience in Chicago, that experience with Matt Ryan, he knows this team, he knows the ownership, obviously, like I said, knows Matt Ryan. I think from a pure depth perspective and production standpoint, really, he's not going to have any numbers that really blow you away, but at the same time, he is a guy in there that can immediately contribute to this Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Rees offense and provide some stability to whoever the quarterback might be. Looks like it's going to be Michael Penix Jr. and looks like it could be another lefty. Who knows?
Thank you, Miles, for saying that because, we love lefties on this show. We appreciate lefties on this show. So, yes, the Falcons might just go with another lefty as well. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Free, looking at it, and you kind of called it out on Thursday's show as well, that you felt like it wouldn't be a splashy move, but maybe a solid move to kind of start. And you even referenced the sort of pseudo-solid, pseudo-splashy move that the Falcons made as their first move in free agency last year, that of Divine Diablo. So this kind of is somewhere in there, except with Divine Diablo, I think he was kind of the unknown and then became quite known for what he was able to do with the Falcons. This is more of a known commodity, but still in a new staff, or potentially with a new staff and in a new system, it could be kind of an unknown commodity as well. What do you think about Ozzy coming back to the A?
Yeah, I think this is a good move for the Falcons. Olamide Zaccheaus has done his best work in Atlanta. You go back to that 2022 season when he was basically the de facto number 2 wide receiver in Drake London's rookie year. Then he leaves and then comes not back to Atlanta, but played the Falcons in that Week 17 game with the Washington Commanders last year and was the best player on the field based off of the Falcons' inability to cover him. So he does his best work in and around the Atlanta Falcons. And so I fully expect him to be at minimum the number 3 wide receiver here and possibly the number 2 wide receiver, depending on what other moves the Falcons make this offseason. And, I'm not mad at it. I've always been a big fan of Ozzy. He always provides pretty good bang for their buck. It will be interesting to see how much the Falcons are spending on this new deal. I'm not expecting it, as Miles and Jarvis have said, to be a ton of money, but probably a decent chunk of change, probably more than he made as an undrafted free agent back in the day in his first couple of years in Atlanta. So, I think this is a solid pickup for the Falcons, a player that is a known commodity that can work across from Drake London, can do a lot of the dirty work stuff that you're looking for at that wide receiver position. And that's just going to be something that I think the Falcons are going to really invest in, trying to build that room around Drake London in the future.
Yeah, Olamide Zaccheaus spent, of course, 4 years with the Falcons, having his best season of his career back in 22 as far as yards go. But right there with what he had with the Commanders, 503 yards and 17 catches, respectively, in 22 with the Falcons. About the same, 17 catches, 506 yards with the Commanders in 24. Both years, he had 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, you got to think that that could be a positive, even if nothing else, someone who's solid, someone who's reliable for a wide receiver room that's going to be essentially in a rebuild, for lack of a better term. But Jarvis, there's another position out there, and there could be, we're going to probably talk more about like that second or maybe third move that the Falcons are going to potentially make, because obviously this was the first one. And I think once news hit about Tua Tagovailoa, you had to kind of think that QB2 could potentially be the second move, just because of the number of suitors that Tua Tagovailoa might indeed have. So going into this legal tampering period in the NFL that's begun, kind of watching the moves all across the league, that's been the one most people have been talking about. So the Dolphins announced today they're cutting Tua Tagovailoa post June 1 designation. They're going to take a ridiculous record-setting cap hit for him. But that said, and all things considered, in a guy in Tua Tagovailoa that's been up and down, kind of started off pretty darn well, and then kind of fell off a cliff, so to speak, in his last season with the Dolphins. What do you think about the possibility or even the viability of Tua becoming a QB here in Atlanta?
I think financially it makes a lot of sense. And because when you look at the number that you're probably going to be able to get him for is probably the vet minimum, 1.3 million, and Miami is going to take the rest of that salary. You sign me up if I'm a cap strapped a team that has still trying to get Kirk Cousins' salary off the books and all of those things. So I think this makes all sense in the world financially. Now, my issue with Tua is the whole leadership piece.
Mm.
Like, because at some point he will probably, if they sign him, we know that he's going to be a starter for, we just don't know how many games, right? We know he's going to be a starter for a period of time. And I think that I used to cringe a lot when I used to hear him talking those post-game press conferences, talking about guys not showing up for meetings and all that stuff. I'm just like, I don't know what type of fit he would be in this locker room, because, you know, generally there are a lot of good guys in this Falcons locker room. So the money piece makes all the sense in the world. I'm just concerned about whether or not this guy's going to be a fit, and what is his mindset coming into this situation as far as what he wants to accomplish signing with this team.
Jarvis, you just hit the nail on the head. I had a show about a week and a half ago where we were kind of running through the viable candidates for QB2 in Atlanta. And I went with Jimmy Garoppolo for the last two reasons that you mentioned, because he was the safer veteran. I know he's a little bit older, but I was looking at the mindset and I was looking at the dollars, because Jarvis, Miles, Free, I wasn't necessarily knowing how the Miami is going to handle, like, hey, are they going to be willing to take that kind of cap hit? Because if they are, then yeah, you go with the Russell Wilson situation and you kind of get Tua for that kind of veteran league minimum. But on the same token, I was wondering, would he be okay with like a 1-year prove it deal, meaning you're QB2 here until Michael Penix Jr. is no longer QB1. Are you okay with this being like a prove it opportunity for you, so that you get yourself back on track, get your stats back where they're supposed to be, and then maybe you go on to a team that's looking for a true QB1? So Miles, there are kind of layers to that as far as what your thoughts might be on the viability of a fit for Tua here in Atlanta.
Yeah, and it looks like we just have some breaking news. Looks like the Dolphins are already moving on. Looks like they were signing Malik Willis, so they're moving on very quickly.
Yep, that was the word. Yeah, that was
the
the word this morning.
And so it's at the quarterback position. But no, I think Jarvis really, like you said, hit the nail right on the head when it comes, or is that the saying? Hit the nail right on the head when it comes to Tua. Look, $1.3, $1.5 million, very similar to what went down, I think, with Russell Wilson going from the Denver Broncos to the Pittsburgh Steelers at that point. And the thing with Tua, I do think it's very interesting when you look back to what he said on the Inner Circle podcast with Zach Klein, as far as what Matt Ryan was saying on his thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins at that point, talking about, not exactly the best quarterback when it comes to playing in bad weather. So you do have Matt Ryan on the record saying that, yeah, there are some concerns when it comes to what Tua was able to do or not able to do down there in Miami. But coming in on a very cheap deal, we don't know Michael Penix Jr.'s timetable for a return. He says that he's going to be ready for week 1, but obviously, given his injury history, we don't necessarily know. But the other side of the coin, we don't know Tua's health as well. He's another guy that's had a lot of issues when it comes to concussions. I do think a pro of this could be the fact that he is a left-handed quarterback. You don't have to completely adjust your offense entirely. That's obviously a very big change when it comes to right-handed versus left-handed. You have that streamlined of 2 left-handed quarterbacks that you're preparing for in training camp, mini camp, what have you, whatever that might be. The receivers aren't having to adjust too drastically when it comes to that. So I think he's probably the best high-end backup, low-key starter you could get, just simply because of the price tag. I think Joe Flacco, that was another name that was really thrown around there because of his familiarity with Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees, but it's tough to believe that even Tua might be cheaper than Flacco. So I think the Falcons are going to go bargain hunting here when it comes to that. And I think, frankly, it's a pretty good move given the circumstances surrounding what they currently have to work with.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point as well in that breaking news about Malik Willis, because that was one of the other quarterbacks that we kind of debated about on one of my shows. And I said, yeah, that's going to be a hard pass for me. And I love Malik, know him and his family personally, but I knew what Malik did in Green Bay in the absence of Jordan Love. And I knew what that franchise had done to help him to improve and prepare himself to be a QB1. He was never going to come here wanting to do anything but be a QB1 and be paid for someone who has an uptick or trajectory to be a QB1. So yeah, for me, he was never the guy I felt would be a fit here, but happy for him, especially being a local to Atlanta, an Atlanta area native, that he was able to land himself somewhere positive. Hopefully for him, although he might be going into a rebuild situation. So we shall see how it works out. But yeah, Free, you've got a great point that Miles made in some of the comments for saying, well, why would you go after like another lefty? For that very reason, so that you're able to set your offense. And you hear like a lot of O-linemen say, yeah, it would be helpful because, you do kind of have that blindside situation that you're looking at. So if you can get those reps that are similar, I'm sure it won't hurt this offense to have him. But you got all those other little things, all those caveats that we've just mentioned about Tua coming to the Falcons. So for you, does it make sense? What do you think about him being possibly QB2?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for both sides. Like, first of all, I don't think anybody other than the Falcons were realistically going to go after Tua, just because when you look at all, the 8 or so teams that have potential quarterback openings, and some of those will get filled, like we see with the Dolphins today. The knock on Tua has always been he can't play in cold weather, and that basically takes like half the teams off the list, like Minnesota playing in NFC North and like having to play in Lambeau and Chicago 4 times or twice a year. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all those teams. So Atlanta was really the only spot for him, maybe Arizona, you could say, for him. And so it makes all the sense in the world that Tua would choose Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski seemingly fell in love with Tua and tried to get his poor man's version of him and Dylan Gabriel last year in Cleveland, and that didn't quite work out. So now he's getting the real thing. And so hopefully we'll get better results than what Stefanski got out of Dylan Gabriel last year. And, I think for the Falcons, like they're in a situation where Tua is kind of, as Miles and Jarvis have mentioned, you're getting pretty good bang for your buck if you're only going to be paying him the veteran minimum or close to it this upcoming season. And also, I think Tua is probably the best quarterback that the Falcons could have signed that is not necessarily going to be a major threat to Michael Penix's status in the future, right? Like, even if you went out and got a Geno Smith, like Geno's going to come in here and be like, I'm taking this job. Malik Willis, obviously, as you just mentioned, T, would come in here with the amount of money that you would have to pay to get him would basically be like, he's our QB1. And so it's kind of threading the needle, I think, for the Falcons with Tua, where it's just like you're getting a pretty solid starter, effective starter that can be that bridge quarterback throughout the offseason, start week 1 if need be, but probably isn't good enough where if we get a couple of games into the season and Penix is healthy and, you probably, again, maybe I'm talking out there. I don't expect the Falcons to start 5-0 with Tua Tagovailoa this year, right? So that's basically what I'm saying. And so, like, if you get to a point, a couple of weeks into the season and Penix is healthy and it's time to pivot, you can pivot towards Penix without feeling like, oh no, this is going to create a major issue for your football team. So I think that's really where the Falcons wind up landing on Tua.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll keep you guys posted on our progress because trust me, we are watching the feeds just like you guys are and reacting. Obviously, Miles saw the news about Malik Willis and anything else that we see, especially as it relates to a player coming to the Falcons or someone we thought maybe was coming to the Falcons or being released from the Falcons. We will absolutely download and react to that information as it comes available. But hey, there are a lot of other free agents out there that could be available because teams are now able to negotiate with impending free agents. So who should maybe the Falcons take a look at as maybe their third choice? We'll talk about that and take that under further review. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets. And somehow buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There has to be a better way. That's why I use the Game Time app. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple, whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. I jumped on the app to check out tickets for an upcoming game, and honestly, it took me minutes. You can see panoramic views from every seat before you buy, and the price you see includes all fees. No surprises at checkout. You can even spot zone deals where you pick the section and Game Time picks the seat for extra savings. 2 taps and you have great seats locked in, fast, easy, done. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download that Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Thank you guys for making the Falcon Squad Show your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So, Miles, we answered the question of QB2 essentially being the second move that maybe the Falcons need to make in free agency. They've already made the first move, according to reports, Olamide Zaccheaus. So when you think about maybe what the next move should be of, say, some of those players who've been or are being announced to be released across the NFL, where do you think the Falcons should go next? Like, what should be their next focus in free agency?
Honestly, I think you could still look at wide receiver. I think that room is just so barren right now, even with the signing of Olamide Zaccheaus. Now, that's one of them. I think you look at the other side of the ball as well. You need another cornerback. You need to shore up that defensive line and linebacking core with the potential impending releases of David Onyemata and Caden Ellis. Those are two really big production standpoint guys that you're going to have to replace. But as far as the wide receiver room is concerned, there's a lot of names out there that would kind of fit that sort of, lack of a better term, billing that this team could be looking for. There's no generic wide receiver 1 out there. It's a lot of wide receiver 2 names out there. Guys like Romeo Dobbs and Rashid Shaheed and Wan'Dale Robinson. Those types of guys, I think, could really fit into what this offense is looking for from a pure depth perspective, to where you don't have to spend any of those early round picks on a wide receiver. I will say I do like Zachariah Branch potentially for that second round pick at the right price, if maybe you can get an extra pick in there. But wide receiver, a huge need. Quarterback, I think Asante Samuel Jr. could be a really good pickup for this team. I think he can come a little bit cheap, does have some injury history, but played pretty well coming back from injury this past season. So you look at guys like that. John Franklin Myers, of course, on the defensive line. This, of course, is with the assumption that David Onyemata is not brought back. Like to get a guy like Ruko Rororo some more depth and you know, have some more flashes, because he's shown that the past couple of seasons. Brandon Dorless, coming back from injury, had a great season last year before that happened. So this team really does need depth at the end of the day, and it's going to come down to who gets released and who doesn't. Caden Ellis, Jeff Ulbrich said it's going to take probably 2 bodies to replace a guy like that. So I think that's a specific position that this team will be looking at in depth for this free agent cycle, depending on who gets to test the waters.
Yeah. And Miles, just to share with you how petty I am, Asante Samuel Jr. has just been, according to sources, re-signed with my Steelers for a year.
Darn.
Just the petty in me.
Just missed it. Just missed it.
I don't think it would have been a bad deal, Miles. No, you're absolutely right. He probably would have been really viable because they got him at a steal. I mean, it was only $4 million for essentially what's a prove it type of contract. So yeah, he would have been nice had the Steelers not swooped in and just gotten him back in, according to. And then also you're talking about wide receivers who might be viable as well. There were just kind of some reports out there that the possibility of Michael Pittman, kind of like where he would go from the Colts, could have potentially been a viable possibility. But again, off to the Steelers. And the only reason I know that is because the Falcons were kind of listed as, hey, he's one of the places that Michael Pittman might sign. And he's now off the market as well. But free, I mean, it's coming fast and furious as far as players who are released and on the market and viable, or players who teams could be open to trade to the Falcons work with the Falcons to complete a trade. So for you, where do you see maybe that next move being for the Falcons now? Again, that they have OZ, that it's looking like Tua might be that guy. Where's that next focus for you?
Well, if it's about what I would like to see, I would like to see the Falcons get a corner, right? Yeah. Because I feel like, today is the day where the money gets thrown around the most, right? Over the next, 48 hours, we'll see a lot of big money deals get thrown around. So if you're gonna bring in somebody now, you're probably going to spend a decent chunk of change on that. And to me, the one position that I think it's justified for the Falcons to spend close to the top of the market would be at the cornerback position, where we've had that revolving door across from AJ Terrell. And it's just like, all right, can we stop the door, from revolving, and let's solve this problem. And so I think the top of the cornerback market features a lot of guys that would add a certain skill set. We saw Jalen Watson just get picked up by the Rams, but guys like Alontae Taylor, Tariq Woolen, Jamel Dean, Nashawn Wright, who comes from the Bears, Greg Newsom, who formerly played for Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, Josh Jobe. Some of these guys I think make a ton of sense. If the Falcons don't want to spend that type of money, I think there are some lower tier guys, Eric Stokes from the Raiders. Do you kick the tires on Trayvon Diggs to see if he's going to be healthy at this point in time? Rasul Douglas, a longtime veteran, et cetera. And then a couple of guys that could be on the trade block, a couple of guys that could be cut, like Marlon Humphrey, Marshawn Lattimore, L'Jarius Sneed, Michael Carter, who played with Jeff Ulbrich in New York and is now with the Eagles, could potentially be an answer at that nickel cornerback spot as you await the return of Billy Bowman coming off of that Achilles injury. Yeah. So I think there are plenty of options for the Falcons at the cornerback position. And if they are going to be aggressive for one spot early in this free agent period, to me, that's the position I would go for.
Yeah. And Jarvis, unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news yet again to Free. We just missed out, Falcons that is, just missed out on Eric Stokes. He has actually reportedly signed a 3-year, $30 million deal to return to the Las Vegas Raiders. So one more guy. But we knew this was going to be a fast and furious first 30 minutes, first 60 minutes of free agency. That's why we started the show a little bit later, because we wanted the opportunity to kind of be able to see what those moves are and then kind of react to, okay, based on who's now gone, whether they've re-signed with another team off the market for whatever reason, who's available for the Falcons to focus on. So for you, where we stand as of now, just in terms of the four of us watching what's going on the ticker, where do you think the Falcons should go next in free agency?
For me, I'm all about finding that reduced meat aisle. You know what I'm saying? I like to shop on the reduced meat aisle. You know what I'm saying?
Explain to Miles what the hell the reduced meat aisle is. He might know.
Bargain hunting.
Yes. When I go in the Kroger, Miles,
I do the same thing. I do the same thing. I know what you're talking about.
Straight to the back, baby. I'm going straight to the back. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Price meat aisle section.
Love it,
You know what I'm saying? That's why
cook it that night.
Yes, please cook it that night.
Hey, look, exactly. I'm cooking it that night. I'm putting it in the refrigerator if I'm not going to eat it that night. So, but yeah, I think, and given that, I feel like I'm thinking about defensive tackle because that market isn't that great. So I feel like you can probably start having those conversations, making those phone calls and talking to some guys that might still be out there. I might even talk to David Onyemata to see what he's thinking, and potentially re-signing him because, like Onyemata was a guy that when he first came in, super productive. When Grady Jarrett got hurt, he pretty much took over that disruptive type defensive tackle type spot. So I feel like you can probably maybe squeeze in one more year at least out of him. So, and because I really feel like it's all about finding value now, because the longer you wait, I feel like once guys start getting signed and agents are going to push their players not to sign right now, because the longer you wait, the more that price gonna go up. So I feel like if you kind of dig into the shopping bins for the defensive tackle spot and start having some conversations now, I really feel like players will value that. I feel, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, you can wait to get $500,000 more, or you can sign with us right now. We give you that extra year." You know what I mean? So I think this is part of the negotiating tools that I feel Ian Cunningham is going to be able to take advantage of, and I feel like the defensive tackle spot is a good place to start.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one. It's intriguing, Jarvis, because I know that's one where, you may hope and you may have some opportunity there for David Onyemata. And then if the Falcons go in that direction, then that might free some things up for them in the draft as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Because it's all about finding depth. I feel like the theme for Ian Cunningham in 2026 in free agency, find depth. Fill out the back end of your roster, and if you're able to find some value in a guy that may be able to come in and start for you, kudos to you. You're gonna get a bonus at the end of the year. So I think that's where I am when it comes to the things to look for, especially since this bad boy is just getting started.
Yeah. Now the coaching staff for the Falcons is complete, but we'll talk about who needs to level up on that staff up next. This episode of our Falcon Squad show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to still fill is still sitting open when the pressure's on and you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spending less time searching, spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching because you will find the right person and cut through that chaos with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Now, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Now, terms and conditions do apply, but if you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So, Aaron, we now know that the Falcons have officially completed their coaching staff for the 2026 season, starting with their announcement of the hire of Troy Crutchen as defensive quality control coach on Sunday. He was recently hired as assistant coach of nickels and special teams at Georgia State for the 2026 season, served as their outside linebackers coach for 2025. What do you think about this hire?
Yeah, I mean, these DQC, the defensive quality control coaches, these are the types of moves that are low-level assistants, but eventually down the road, they might come something. Like I think back over 20 years ago when Dennis Allen was a defensive quality control coach for Dan Reeves back in the day. And look where he is now as, one of the top defensive coordinators. And so, we'll see where Troy, I don't know how many of us are going to be around 20 years from now to see where Troy Crutchen is. But, these are sort of Jarvis, the world is crazy
over there, right?
The world is a crazy place. So I don't know what's going on. But, it's one of those moves where you get this guy in, he does a lot of low level stuff. And then you just hope that you start this pipeline of developing coaches and we'll see where it winds up going. So, it'll be interesting to look back if we're 20 years from now and Troy Crutchen is one of the top defensive coordinators or something like that in the NFL or in college football or something like that. And it's like, oh yeah, he technically didn't get his start in coaching here in Atlanta, but he certainly got his start as a professional coach here in Atlanta, similar to Dennis Allen.
JD, what do you think about the hire of Crutchen?
Yeah, this is one of those things where look, they finding depth on the coaching staff, right? They're adding depth to the coaching staff because I think Aaron makes a great point when you talk about bringing in guys as that DQC because, he was supposed to be the nickels coach for Georgia State and he had been there a year before and he had kind of, worked his way up and got like a promotion, but, he ended up getting the opportunity to come to the Falcons. And when you get an opportunity to go to be a coach in the league, regardless of title, like you have to take that opportunity. So this is one of those things where you kind of bringing in different minds, bringing in some young minds, guys coming from the college game, because we know the NFL steals a lot of things from the college world because it seems like offenses look almost exactly the same nowadays. But, this is one of those moves where you're going to say, okay, they brought this guy in, and then 5-6 years from now, I'm like, oh, okay, he might be one of the hot defensive coordinator candidates down the road.
And for you, Miles, what are your thoughts on Crutchen as the final hire for this particular coaching staff for the Falcons?
Yeah, I mean, my eyes are on Ted Hurst, to be honest with you. I really liked him at Georgia State. So I'm like, okay, that could be a really good depth pickup a little bit in the later rounds. But look, I mean, I think the big thing with this coaching staff, and I think it goes beyond Crutchen at this point for me, is the offensive staff that Kevin Stefanski has put together with a guy like Tanner Engstrand and Alex Van Pelt, I believe his last name is. You got two guys now, and this is very different than how things ran under Arthur Smith and Raheem Morris, in my opinion. You've brought in guys that have play calling experience, that have position calling experience. Both those guys, quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators. Yes, Tommy Rees also was an offensive coordinator in Cleveland and at the collegiate ranks. But you also have these other guys, quarterback coaches, passing game coordinators that can help a young guy like Michael Penix Jr. and this young offensive core of Bijan Robinson and Drake London. Still weird to call those guys young, but at the end of the day, that's what they are. They haven't had sort of that experience level that Matt Ryan even mentioned, when he first was drafted back in 2008, bringing guys like Mike Smith and Mike Mularkey, guys that had that offensive play calling experience and knew how to ease a young quarterback into a system, utilize the run game, things like that. So obviously Tanner Engstrand, he had that, he was up in Detroit, or excuse me, he was up in Detroit, but he was up in New York, and things obviously didn't go according to plan with the Jets. But when has it gone according to plan with the Jets? He did a lot of good things up there with the Detroit Lions, and Pelt obviously having some experience there in New England, as well as with Kevin Stefanski when they made their playoff run. So to me, this coaching staff, I just really like the bodies that they brought in with experience that you didn't have prior. I mean, yes, you had TJ Yates, and it's funny because I think you can't even remember who the offensive coordinator was for Arthur Smith. Someone's going to remember it here in this group, I know. But it's funny because back in the day, you just think Arthur Smith's the one running this, and you have sort of your de facto offensive coordinator of sorts to kind of, I guess, have the title. But at the end of the day, now you have those play callers that have the experience to get these young guys moving forward in their careers.
Yeah.
How could you forget Dave Ragone?
Dave Ragone, there it is.
Whoa!
Oh my goodness.
Whoa,
Nice
it.
pull. Nice pull.
Nice
single-handedly responsible for Matt Stafford winning MVP this year as the quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Wow, that wow, like, and I liked Dave Ragone, so I'm not saying that because I see the feed is like, Tenitra, a hater, like, why are you going negative or dark? No, I actually like Dave Ragone. It's just I wasn't ready for that one, Free. But yeah, I think Miles makes a great point. So I want you guys to weigh in on that before we talk a little breaking news here about that coaching staff as a whole, how it's rounded out for Kevin Stefanski, and just Free, JD, also what you guys' thoughts are on maybe the most intriguing. Miles mentioned for him, it's Tanner Engstrand as the passing game coordinator. That's the guy who he's most intrigued about to kind of see how he's going to impact his respective unit. Who's that coach for you guys?
Well, for me, I think what's interesting about the construction of the staff is like it's very clearly you got Kevin Stefanski's fingerprints on the offense and you got Jeff Ulbricht's fingerprints on the defense.
Yeah.
And it'll be fascinating to sort of see after this upcoming season sort of which side of the ball we're looking at as being like, oh, that was sort of the strength of the team, or that was the unit that outperformed expectations on either side of the ball, to sort of see like, okay, because, we often get with these coaching assemblies, there will be changes typically after those first few seasons. And so you do wonder a little bit which side of the ball we'll be looking at that will be like, okay, well, we need to tweak that a little bit more on offense. And Kevin Stefanski needs to, reassign this guy, move this guy, and maybe bring in a guy here. Or Jeff Ulbrich will be doing a similar thing where we're talking about, maybe reshuffling that staff moving forward. So I think that's going to be the interesting conversation about this coaching staff a year from today. But in terms of like, the person I have my eye on, John Timu, who was brought in here as I think he was a defensive quality control coach initially or whatever, some type of defensive assistant. And now he's going to be the outside linebackers coach. So piggybacking off of what we talked about with Troy Crutchin a little bit earlier, but now he's going to be the guy that's coaching up that edge rusher room, replacing Ja'Quise Smith. And sort of, will we see similar results with that breakout year that group had last year? Will we build off of that in 2026? So that's one of the coaches that I'm eagerly anticipating to see what he does.
And there seems to be the overall theme here: veteran-laden coaching staff and surrounding the most important position on the football field, that quarterback, with as many minds as possible, right? But still with the mind of not having too many cooks in the kitchen. And I'll be interested to see if Kevin Stefanski is going to be able to delegate that. There were some questions about his leadership style, or, being a little bit too laid back. So I'll be interested to see how he kind of works that pecking order and kind of works those guys that have been in the league for so long, outside of, Tommy Reese, but obviously, but when you have guys like Elliot Van Pelt, who's worked with guys like Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that, I just really interested to see how that dynamic is going to work.
Yeah, that's the trend, Jarvis, because we know that after what we saw the last couple of seasons with maybe too many newbies in key positions, that didn't work. So with sort of the fire, let's get going now. We need to get back into the postseason. How do you get there? You get there with guys who've experienced getting there and who've had that experience and that pedigree of winning football. So yeah, I think that is probably the common theme of what we saw for the coaches, including Crutchin, to round out Kevin Stefanski's staff. Now, speaking of rounding out a roster and some of the moves that are being made there, we got another move that is, man, this spin the block is becoming a theme today. But yeah,
we're bringing the gang back together.
Right. It's like, oh my God, the gang is back together again. And this one is, again, maybe going back to something we started the show talking about, which is maybe where the Falcons have arguably their largest need, which is that wide receiver room. And just if no other, and I'll say pass catcher room, right? For no other reason, having to fill that out and just getting depth and having bodies in the room. So according to the report from Ian Rappaport, Rap Sheet, the Insiders, Austin Hooper is making a return to the Falcons for $3.25 million on a one-year deal. So, Free, what do you think about Hoop returning to the A?
Well, Matt Ryan's not beating the allegations that he's not in control of the personnel moves, right? Because the Falcons are only adding players that Matt Ryan has actually thrown passes to. No, I think Hooper, obviously, he left Atlanta back in 2020, I believe it was, to join Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. Was an effective player as part of like a three-headed tight end room with David Njoku and a draft pick in Harrison Bryant. And it'll be interesting to see if that's the plan here in Atlanta with Hooper, Charlie Warner, Kyle Pitts. All of these guys are basically on one-year deals. Yeah. So, you don't necessarily have long-term viability at that spot. So I still think we could see the Falcons drafting a tight end a little bit later, given, that you don't necessarily have guys locked up for 2027 beyond. But, Hooper is a proven option, a proven veteran. You saw him be a solid number 2 tight end in New England this past year. This is what he's kind of been these last couple of years since, leaving Atlanta. And so he's a solid depth piece. He'll give you some plus value as a blocker. He'll give you some plus value as a pass catcher. He kind of bridges the gap between Kyle Pitts and Charlie Warner, where Charlie Warner is mainly a blocker with a little bit of pass catching. Kyle Pitts is mainly a pass catcher with a little bit of blocking. And Austin Hooper is somewhere in the middle. And so I think that's a solid pickup for the Falcons.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Free, the last season was in 2019 with the Falcons, and he spent a couple seasons with the Browns, and a little bit of bouncing around the Titans, Raiders, and of course, then the last couple of seasons, including a trip to the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. Jarvis, for you, when you look at this signing of Austin Hooper, what do you think about him being added back to the Falcons pass catcher room?
Financially, it makes sense. I think I'm gonna be able to say this for at least for the next week or so when we start doing these shows, because this is a guy you can get for cheap, 1 year, $3 million, and like you said, like Free mentioned, like you want to be able to have a kind of a different mix of tight ends that can do certain things well, that don't necessarily do certain things well, and one thing that tight end doesn't do well, you want to have a tight end that can do that really well. So yeah, I think it's a nice mix. When you talk about this tight end group, they still have Joshua Simon as well. So, who knows what he can potentially do with this team if he gets an opportunity to get some run at the tight end position during the summer and all that. So I think that this is the type of move that we're going to continue to see as free agency continues.
Yeah, and for you, Miles, when you think about Austin Hooper, who I guess would fall in that category of what we've called a solid move or a solid pickup in free agency, what do you think about him returning?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, just having pass catchers, not just wide receivers, having these guys in. His experience with Kevin Stefanski when Cleveland was good, I might add. I know it's been a long time, but
that's fair.
Kevin Stefanski, he had success with a guy like that. And of course, so did the Falcons at one point with Austin Hooper. I think you'd argue the best tight ends the Falcons have had in this century have been Tony Gonzalez, Kyle Pitts, and Austin Hooper, and Algie Crumpler, of course. Got to show love to Algie as well. But I think you're bringing back some guys that have had some stability within this organization. Obviously, those two being Zaccheaus and Austin Hooper, but familiarity and depth. I think those are the two big things at this point. And Man, I know that that number 2 jersey is calling Matt Ryan like the Goblin Mask right now with how everything is going at this point. It seems like he's ready to give Julio and Roddy a call right now. So I think we'll see how this goes. But no, from an overall move standpoint, I think this is a very good move. It's cheap, it's familiar, and I think it's going to be a good move for this team.
Yeah, and you're right. Especially that first year that Hooper was with Cleveland, that was one of his better years at the tight end position. And as long as Ian Cunningham is doing what we thought he would do, which is make those solid moves, you still have a draft class that, you have a couple of tight ends that are going to go high. But in terms of some of those mid to later rounds, there are still a lot of tight ends who have an upside. So there's still every possibility that as Cunningham is stacking things in free agency, he's still stacking things with an eye on what's going to happen just a few weeks down the road in the draft. Now, new uniforms. Who dis? Well, the Falcons might have some. We'll download on that in the look ahead. So Jarvis, allegedly, the Falcons will unveil new uniforms. They actually dropped a video announcing this on April 2nd. That's when we should see those new uniforms that are dropped. Are you excited about the new uniforms and any thoughts on what they might look like?
I guess so. Because I'm not gonna wear it. So I mean
Not wearing the number of another grown man. I respect.
No, I would never, Miles. I promise you, man. We here, dog. Like I would never never. I will not do that. Sorry, I will not wear another man's jersey on my back.
What is the age cutoff on that, by the way?
I would. It probably for me. Now mine's gonna be a lot lower than a lot of other people, but it's 18, dog. Like once you hit that, once you're able to, you know what I'm saying, buy some cigarettes, man. Hey, bro, it's time to grow up. If you can go into the army, you can stop buying doggone grown man's jerseys and put them on your back. Sorry.
Unless they give you, like, remember, Miles, when they used to give us jerseys like the one, wait, it's right over here.
There it is. I see.
Yeah, and they give us the jerseys with our names on the back. And I mean, not that I've ever worn them, by the way, but they make for great background props for me, but Jarvis, if I do wear it, Miles, if I do wear it, like, I hope you guys wouldn't like out me out. So like, I guess my follow-up question is, now, does that same rule apply to ladies? Like,
absolutely not.
Okay, so I can rock a jersey until a lady can rock a jersey until,
because T, you know what I'm saying, like however long you want. Because here's the thing, T. So we're gonna get a little.
Here we go.
Make sure my wife ain't listening.
Get ready, man.
There was a time and place where jersey dresses were a thing.
Yes.
And oh my goodness, I was, as a single man, I enjoyed that era. So yes, women can wear jersey dresses, custom jerseys, joints for as long as they possibly want. And because you should look good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Compliment yourself, because there are a lot of jerseys that, especially those NBA jerseys, they used to compliment very well. Sorry.
Well,
I'll stop talking now.
But you know what? In Jarvis's defense, he didn't go down the rabbit hole by himself. As you guys know, we are former 92.9 The Game employees, and we still have like a whole group chat. And it went down the rabbit hole last week on one of our favorite singers and how she rocked a basketball jersey in her video back in the day. Yes. And that is still like tea, man. Like she, You
talking about Maya?
I'm a girl, and I was like, Maya did that.
Yeah.
I just had to clarify, because I believe that Maya then and Maya now can still rock that jersey.
Yes, she can.
Yeah, I totally.
A lot of confidence.
Yeah, she's a bad girl. So I just wanted clarity, because I wanted to make sure that Maya was still okay to be able to rock her jersey if she still chooses.
Maya, wear that jersey.
Yes. Okay, Miles. That's our rabbit hole for Sec 4. So just jump on in the hole with us. But you actually tipped us when you told us in the open that you are kind of, I don't know if you use the word relieved, but certainly has some thoughts and feelings on these jerseys for the Falcons.
Oh, yeah. Well, if anyone has followed me on social media for the past few years, they know that I am a very big Falcons uniform connoisseur. So I will say I have Never been a fan of their current set. Sorry, Tenitra, I know I see that jersey back there in the corner, but I've never been a fan of this uniform. Obviously, I think the throwbacks, you can see the red helmet behind me. It's one of my favorites. I think it's one of the best throwback sets in the league. But I will say, I've been speaking with Zach Cohen from FanDuel for quite some time. He's been ahead of all the leaks when it comes to NFL uniform news. He's been right basically 99% of the time. He actually showed me a leak of this Falcons uniform, and he's done some mock-ups of it on his page if anyone wants to check it out. But I like it. I think it could be a little bit better. I'm a big proponent of some sleeve stripes of sorts. It looks like it's going to be a red uniform primary. It looks like they're going away from the black. I'm sure they're going to still have a black alternate, but it looks like it's basically, from what I've seen, a cleaner version of the Matt Ryan, Michael Vick sort of era with that red uniform. The black helmet looks like it's staying, and I've been told there may be some gray pants included in this as well. I really like the gray pants the team had in that 90s era. I thought that was a really good look. It defeats the whole, just white on white. I mean, I do like white on white from time to time, but I like to mix it up every now and again. But don't get rid of the throwbacks. I think the red helmet, I know a lot of fans were hoping for red helmet primaries. It doesn't look like they're going to go that way, but all things considered, I think it's head and shoulders above what they've had the past few years, because to me, the Falcons uniforms as of late have reminded me of that Tampa Bay digital clock uniform that they had for quite some time before they went back to what was working, I think, for a long time. I know the creamsicles are really good, but to me, the Falcons and Bucks, this current era, reminds me of the same thing. And let's be honest, the Falcons have had a very, very bad record in these uniforms. I think we're all ready for them to go away.
Yeah. From that part, it's like those uniforms are triggering. Well, hey, Free, we're kind of in a throwback space right now with Olamide, Zaccheaus, and Austin Hooper looking like they're going to be returning to the Falcons. So why not throw it back even further with the uniforms? But I mean, what do you think about that? Any thoughts on, are you excited about it? I know you won't wear it like Jarvis, but are you excited about a switch up?
I'm interested. I'm a bigger fan of the current jerseys than Miles are, but I understand why the Falcons are going back to this, because I think Arthur Blank is feeling nostalgic. It's like we were winning with the red jerseys, we're not winning with the current jerseys, so let's get back to the winning ways. And then, of course, connecting the dots where we're just running it back with the 2018, 2019 receivers, Julio, Calvin Ridley. If Calvin Ridley gets cut by the Titans, all right, we got a spot for you, Calvin, in the back. Come on down. But Russell Gage, what you up to?
Let's see what Sanu's up to these days, huh?
Right. I mean,
but I think it'll be interesting to see. Like, Miles, you mentioning the gray pants to me is the interesting thing, because I that's the uniform that I'm nostalgic for, because I first became a fan in the 90s with the black on gray. And so mixing that gray pants in, which they haven't had with the red jersey since the 80s, it'll be an interesting look. So if they can bring a slightly different wrinkle to what we had, for basically 20 years before the recent uniform change with the red jerseys, and can bring in a different wrinkle with some gray pants, I think that would be a potential upgrade.
Yeah. Well, hey, if we're spinning the block, might as well pick up Jonnu Smith too, because the Pittsburgh Steelers have already released him. So hey, if that's what we're doing, just go ahead and add one more pass catcher / tight end who can catch a couple balls and block a few folks. Add him back to the mix, just for kicks and giggles. But Jarvis, speaking of kicks and giggles, or maybe not giggles, because some people took this really seriously, and I don't want to disrespect where they stand on this issue, but in 1 week, the Atlanta Hawks are hosting Magic City Night at State Farm Arena. And there are a lot of people, whether it's fake rage or not, I don't know, but there are a lot of people who are good with it. And then there are a lot of people who on social media appear not to be good with it. So let's put on our hats, our Falcons hats, and think about how that might feel for you. Would you be offended, okay with, indifferent to a Magic City day for a Falcons game?
Well, T, for those who don't know, I am a product of Atlanta, home of strip clubs and churches. I don't partake in the former anymore, and I'm a real big fan of the latter. So, I can't deny experiences in life. You know what I'm saying? I can't deny what people want to see, what's all the goings ons is about, you know, because I'm not at that age where I'm just like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. No, man, you should experience life and experience certain things. So if Big Mag, you know what I'm saying, Mr. Magic, you know what I'm saying, wants to set something up with the Falcons, and I'm sitting up there in the press box and they, you know, trying to sell me $150 hoodie, I'm not going to buy it. But, you know, some people are going to buy that. You know, they can be cool with that. The peach and the black, that joint is pretty doggone sweet. So, you know, who am I, T, to deny people wanting to experience the legendary Magic City Mondays? I would never want anyone to do that. Not at all.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Miles. It's not like strippers are going to be the halftime show.
Right.
What?
That's magic, right? Sorry to tell you, brother.
I'm out.
Miles,
There's a package deal.
right. Hey, Miles, I guarantee the people that paid $100 for those standing room only tickets, they are waiting for some
It's
posts
just the
to be dropped
wings?
at
Come
midcourt.
on.
Yeah, they're waiting for some posts to be dropped too.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it's just about the lemon pepper wings, and it's just kind of like an ode to the culture. Jarvis said it best. We got a strip club on one block and a church on the next in every corner of the city. It is just Sodom and Gomorrah meets Jerusalem. That's just what the city is. So, I mean, for me, that's kind of how I look at it. Like, well, that's the city. It's what it is. But people were seemingly up in arms, whether it was fake rage or not, all over social media. Some NBA players even demanding that.
Al Horford.
Yeah. Surprising. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, Al.
Can I say something about Al? Like, what is his deal with this city? I don't understand him. I ain't gonna say I don't like the man because I don't know him personally, but it just seemed like he's done a lot of things that just
Potholes got to him, I guess. I don't know.
Exactly.
It don't fit well with me, man.
It's so weird because we loved Al. Like media loved Al, the city loved Al. Yeah, I mean, the front office didn't love you because they didn't sign you or give you the right money. I mean, you still got a ring out of it eventually, so it all kind of worked in your favor. But yeah, that's interesting. But I do wonder if
and sit down somewhere, go retire. Why are you still playing basketball?
Well, that's 39-year-old Al talking versus say 29-year-old Al, the one who was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But moving on. Miles, what do you think about that? Like, would you be offended? Would you be okay, or are you indifferent to? Hey, what if the Falcons try Sunday?
Well, I'm a little indifferent to it because number one, here's the pros and cons for it. So cons, if you don't want to see that, maybe don't bring the family, don't bring the kiddos for this particular game. The pros for it, look at the get-in price for this game. Everyone wants to go to this game, and people who are not from Atlanta don't understand the cultural aspect of what this entails and what Magic City is. It's more than just a gentleman's club, to put it very plainly. It's a cultural thing. It's the wings, it's the aura of Magic City, the lights, all that kind of stuff. Lou Williams, all that kind of it goes back very, very far. So I think people outside of Atlanta don't necessarily understand what this is all about, but the people who are here know good and well what this is and are very excited for it. I mean, the wings, that's one thing, obviously, but anything you can do to promote this city and get more butts in seats, we're seeing it with the Hawks right now. It's the hottest ticket in town. So if it works, it works. It's good business for you and a good business for your fans. So I like the move. I think it's good and I think it's fun. And if, like I said, you don't want to bring the kiddos, maybe don't bring the kiddos for this game. I think there's a lot of other games you can bring them to.
That's what I say
my
too.
wife even asked me, was I going? T? My wife, she asked me, are you going to the game? I was like,
of course not, baby.
It was a test.
So yeah, free. It's like, I mean, I think that Miles is right. In my opinion, like Charles Barkley once said, I'm not a role model. Like, that's not what the Hawks are completely and totally here for. Like, if you don't think this is a good environment for your kids, then that might not be the game to take them to. Maybe you take them to tomorrow's home game as opposed to next Monday's home game. But it's a business at the end of the day that the Hawks are doing. They're not, again, there will not be, what do you call her? Players Club, Jarvis, come on. Come on,
Diamond?
you know her name.
Diamond?
Diamond, yeah. Diamond's not going to be there in her clear heels. So
I know that. T.
But I knew you did. So Diamond's not going to be here.
On that
Yeah,
movie.
but I knew you did. So Diamond won't be there. But the lemon pepper wings, check.
Yeah.
The experience of, like you said, the peach hoodies and just all that is Atlanta, it's all going to be there. Would it be a big deal for you if the Falcons said, hey, we'll try to remix it and kind of make it our own for the 2026 season?
In the words of Shannon Sharp, that ain't no problem.
That ain't no problem.
You know, so yeah, I don't have a problem with it. What's this? I saw this thing going around a couple months ago. It's like the bean soup theory or something like that, where it's just like someone makes a recipe online about bean soup, and then someone responds like, "What if you don't like beans?" And it's basically the idea of like everybody on the internet thinks everything is created for them, and so therefore they take offense when something is not specifically created and crafted for them. And so I feel like this is kind of this conversation where it's just like, if you don't want to participate in Magic City, you know, Mondays or whatever, then don't participate. There's no sweat off your back or anything like that. And if you do, then go for it. So it's just one of those things where, like, as you talked about it, T, is like people making a big deal about it. Like, I get it. I get why people have their reservations about it, but like, you know, at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, live and let live. And if you don't want the wings, then don't go to get the wings, and everything will be fine. So that's kind of how I feel about it. If the Falcons were to do this, as Miles said, it would certainly get attention. It would certainly put butts in seats. And then you would probably have a bunch of walkouts at halftime because a lot of people would be like Miles and think that, you know, they were going to get a very specific halftime show and wouldn't get delivered on that. But, you know, as long as they pay for the tickets, it's all good.
Yeah. And here's the thing, too. Away from the game, away from the actual, the Magic City concept, that's just a great game, because the Hawks are in a situation right now where they are fighting for their playoff play-in lives. So I still don't think it's one of those things that's a bad deal. Ultimately, you got to look at it for the fuller picture. And I guarantee the Hawks have been the number one entertainment experience in all of the NBA for 5 years running now. So I'm just going to go with those folks know what they're doing. Period. The end. Yes. So one more thing that you guys, if you want to weigh in, Jarvis, Miles, Aaron, we just saw multiple reports, including one from Tom Pelissero with the NFL Network, that the Falcons are signing veteran Nick Folk to a 2-year deal. He's 41, back for his 20th NFL season. But what do you guys think about that report on the signing of Folk? And anybody, or 1, 2, or 3, or none of you guys?
I'll just go ahead and say, I mean, I liked what Zane Gonzalez did at the end of last season, but I'm all about competition, because this team did not have competition for that role at the beginning of last season, and it ended up costing them actually games last year. So I'm all about, you know, if he's the guy, he's the guy. If Zane's the guy, Zane's the guy. But bring in competition. Let's see what these two guys can do. I don't know if Zane will return next year, but obviously Nick's on the older side, so he brings a level of experience. Don't know if he necessarily has the same leg that he has had throughout his career, but I'm just about competition at this point, specifically at that position, because let the best man play, and let's not just feel completely comfortable about what is in the room right now. Let's see what the best man can do.
Yeah, I was just distracted because there's also a report from Adam Schefter that the Falcons signed a punter in Jake Bailey as well. So we're getting a brand new kicker, brand new punter. I did an episode earlier today on Monday talking about the possibility of getting brand new kicker and punter on Locked On Falcons. And I was sitting there last night being like, is this going to be topical and outdated by the time we get to Monday? And yes, it was pretty outdated. But in that episode, talked about the possibility that you would see turnover at that spot. Thought punter was likely, was expecting Zane Gonzalez back, but Nick Folk has been very productive these last couple of years, even though he's up there in age. And so I think the Falcons are looking for a little bit more stability with a known commodity.
Craig putting his stamp on this roster already, man. So, you know, new special team coordinator, Craig Ackerman. So, yeah, I'm all about what he's about. So, you know, until I'm not. So we'll see how this works out. And I think that, you know, when you bring guys in that you're familiar with and understanding what those guys bring to the table, and not necessarily having to bring the guys back from the previous regime, yeah, I'm all on board with that.
And Nick Folk, not a bad 2025 season, nearly 97% of his field goals made, tied for 5th in the league. And when you look at some of those longs, 50 plus, 7 of 8, that's not bad. So yeah, maybe if for no other reason you bring him in for competition and let's say see the best man win out of training camp versus having to have a meltdown of games that are lost on the leg of a kicker, and that's something that eventually costs you the potential to get to the postseason. Yeah, I'd rather the Falcons do it sooner rather than later. A little surprised on the punter piece there, but hey, if we're moving in that direction of signing guys that make for a competition and anyone who can help the Falcons flip the field and anyone who can provide better support and kind of rounding out that special teams unit that we know was the weakest of the 3 units last season, not a bad deal for the Falcons to say, hey, we recognize it and we want to address it early. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcon Squad show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. The Falcon Squad show and Locked On Falcons are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll see you next time.